Good evening, everyone. I hope we are all well and we had a good weekend and have also managed to rest. So, thank you very much once more for taking a time to be part of this session. Tonight, we want to talk about the issue of credit card. As I promised, that we'll be looking at the issue of debt and also finding alternatives how to deal with our debt. So, one of the things that I see or consider it as a critical matter when it comes to debt is that each and every one of us must have what we call a risk assessment every time they want to consider debt or consider investment. So when you do risk assessment, there are some factors which you have to deal with. For an example, one of the critical factors in both debt and also investment is the age. So a person who's maybe in his 50s, it becomes so difficult to deal with use of debt because in your 50s now you are closer to your retirement, and you have to bear in mind that going to retirement you need to make sure that you don't carry debts to retirement as far as your source of income will pause and you'll rely on whatever you have invested. So if you don't consider such things, you will later find yourself struggling in retirement. And it is my belief that retirement is meant for rest and also for enjoying yourself. So to enjoy yourself, you need to pay attention to such things. What are the things that can be stumbling block when I go to retirement? So as I've said, this thing is similar to investment. There are some formats that you cannot use when it comes to investment because of age. You can't afford to maybe if there will be a certain breakdown, you can't afford to wait because you have a limited time. So hence it's critical that before you commit to any debt, you also do a risk assessment, um, as you wanna live a peaceful life, because some of the times debt also affect your mental state. So you want to check that if I commit to this debt, will it affect me sorry, in the few years that I'm having with my employer, or will it affect me when I'm in retirement? And such things they are difficult when you are doing it yourself, but it's good if you have someone who's your planner or your coach will assist you to say, based on the assessment which I did, I think it's not the right step to take based on this one, two, three, four factors, because there must be factors on the yes or no of the decision that needs to be taken. So sometimes because of pressure and other things that we come across in our lives, we end up committing debt and then later on we regret. And as I've said on our previous sessions, that debt is not good, neither bad. It depends on what kind of a debt are you consuming. And we're not bridging this subject to condemn or to make you feel bad or as person. We are all of us who are here, we're learning. And there are some things that we start to figure them out in our old age, which is we cannot reverse time. We see one of the commodities that we don't have control over. We have to utilize it rightly. So when you learn such things, maybe at the old age, it's a new thing like to you. Please make sure that you share such lessons with your children. Your children will share it with their children. And then the line goes like that. This subject which I will be sharing today, the subject of credit cards, is one of the subjects which I wish some of the people that I came across, they knew it at an early age. And it's one of the subjects which I also find it critical, especially to kids that are still at school, the young ones who are still in their entry level of their careers. These are the things that affects most of these young people when they start to work, and such decision affects the rest of their lives. So hence it's critical for them to have such information at an early age. And it's so difficult because we rush to consume such things. A bank will call you and say, You have a credit card of 200,000, have a credit card of 400,000, or whatever amount it might be. You just rush to say yes. You don't check the things that you need to understand. And sometimes, when something's on the table, you don't pay much attention on the important factors that you need to consider before you say yes to that thing. And you don't want to take anything that you'll be against the decision of saying yes to what's on the table. So I'm teaching you this, but please share the information with your kids, share the information with your loved ones so that they'll understand. Even those who have already committed and things like credit cards. And most of the time they'll say, no, credit card is very bad. Similar to debt, is both good and bad. It depends on how you utilize it. So the most critical thing when it comes to these things of credit cards is to have knowledge on how the system has been built, because those guys, the banks, they've never introduced these for your own sake. They've introduced it for their own sake because they are there for profit. They are not a charity entity. They are not running charity entities. They are running profitable entities. So their aim is to make profits. And as far as we are facing these challenges as a country, there are a lot of changes which are taking place. We find ourselves stuck in debt, and sometimes we discover that some of the debts which are having, they become so difficult to deal with them. But what I know, it is there is nothing that is impossible when you commit yourself to do it. It may be hard but doable. So hard does not mean impossible. Hard means hard, but still be doable. So what it requires is a strategy and a commitment to deal with it. So you have to put your best efforts to make sure that you deal with your debt. You have to put your best effort to make sure that you are committed, because sometimes we commit ourselves for 1 month or 2 months and later on we fall back. And with the changes of the economy, the fight between the US and the Iraq guys is costing us, because now the battle started afresh again, started down afresh again, which now it cost us. Last week the Reserve Bank was saying they will keep the interest rate at the same level, but they say for them to keep the interest rate at the same level, it has affected the economical growth. I forgot about how many percentages, and I don't know whether they're using that as a scapegoat, because we had crisis even before the issue of the Americans and the Iraq guys. So it's we are living in those days of difficult economical battles, which you have to know how to position yourself, and you have to know how to deal with such things. And I was reading somewhere that even these guys who are supposed to submit all the funds that are collecting from the employees in terms of retirement, most of them, they failed to submit billions, meaning they have received the money but have never invested it. They've used it for other things which they were supposed to, whatever it might be, that entities, they have their own problems which sometimes they don't want to talk about. So we are dealing with these difficult times. But one of the things which I think of, like, this thing always makes me to think that, guys, our children will never deal with the same economical problems that we're dealing with. We are dealing with another level of economical problems, but our children will have difficulties more than what we're dealing with. To the point that I have to say this to you guys, that it is compulsory. It is not an option. It is compulsory for us now to work hard and build things like your retirement plan for our children before they even start to work. Because if they have to depend on starting from afresh, by the time they'll be working, a lot of these policies, they will change. Or the time maybe they'll start to work after 5 to 10 years, a lot of things, they will definitely change. So unlike us who started from zero with no retirement annuity, unlike us who started with nothing on the table, we should not risk our children to go to the same battlefield like we went to the battlefield, because things are changing, and they're not changing for good, they're changing for worse. We like, we like to talk about positive things in the country, but when you look at these economical changes, guys, you don't have to use fantasies. You have to deal with the reality that there are a lot of things which are changing. And it's good, guys, and it's important that we still keep our budget. It may sound old-fashioned. It may sound like you are not updated, you are outdated, but still keep your budget, still live within your means. It's something that have been said long time ago, but we have to repeat it over and over again to live within our means. Find ways to minimize your monthly expenses. Find ways to consume less and to invest more. We still need this in this time. And I have to subject this. Build a real emergency fund account. Don't use your credit card as a backup plan. That if something happens, you're going to stick on the credit card. Use like a real emergency fund account. Build it consistently and make sure that you contribute something to your emergency fund account than to rely on the credit card to say the credit card is my backup. You cannot back up yourself with a credit card because how that thing it has been built is not built to cover you. Because the time you start to say, I'm going to use my credit card as a backup plan in terms of emergencies, is the time that you experience a fall. And then some of those falls, you might discover that you have to carry it up until you go to retirement. So then you are in retirement, then part of your money goes to the debts which you have to save is because you can't afford to have debts in retirement. So now before you settle everything, you have to settle all the debts. So if you have a bond, make sure that you settle it before you go to retirement. If you have a car, whatever it might be, make sure that before you go to retirement, you don't carry any debt. And it's also critical that when you go to retirement, you have something that you have invested in beside the money which are going to get from the retirement scheme that you're contributing to. Have something that you've invested in. Have something that will continue to bring income in your pocket. So you work out something there. Um, I was sharing about this young girl that I know. So she decided to say I'm retiring from work, and when I retire, I want to start a business. This thing, guys, it does not work like instantly. If you know that you want to retire from your work, build an exit strategy. Don't just wake up tomorrow and say, I'm just retiring. Build an exit strategy. An exit strategy which have sustainability in it, because sustainability plays a major role. You can't just wake up and say, I'm retiring. I had so and so saying, in farming, there is a lot of money. I'm going to start farming and start to make money. That's fantastic. That's ideal. You don't know the realities of what they're dealing with there. Or maybe you retire this year and then you go to say, I'm going to do farming as an example. And then we have these issues of climate change, which they have said, no, we might have a big heat wave. And then discover that they're not producing a lot of things because of the heat waves. Most of these stuffs that were circulating are affected. And then you risk your last money. There is no longer, how are you going to sustain? So it's that, guys, you plan. So it might take you 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, depending on the things which are on your shoulders, and also the life which you're going to live if you decide to retire, because you must have plans on how you're going to sustain all these things. And I was thinking about this while walking and said, guys who are living in the East States, they must also have a plan that if they die, how will their children be able to pay all those rates? So they must have a plan to say, if I die, I understand I have a life cover, but I also have 1, 2, 3, 4. I can be able to continue the rates and pay the rates so that my kids will be able to remain the property. So we have to think around these realities and make sure that we deal with the realities. I'm begging you guys, you are not coming to this class and then tomorrow wake up and say, no, I'm going to resign at work. Have an exit strategy. Get information, start to work it out. It will take years to build an exit strategy, but build something that is sustainable. Test the waters before you start to swim. And make sure that whatever you say you're going to use as your backup plan is working. And then I was reading somewhere in a book, they were saying, what is your plan if your plan is not working? So they say you must have a plan upon your plan, so that if this thing is not working, I have a backup plan which is sustainable. And then you put it on test, then you work it out while you still have an income. So even if it's not working, you will still find ways on how to deal with it because you don't fully depend on that thing. So make sure that if you decide that you're going to retire from your work, we have a sustainable plan. So then when it comes down to the issues of this credit card, as I've said, please share this kind of information with your children so that they'll know the time they'll start to work, they don't fall for side things. So credit cards, they are built psychological. So there is a psychological part which I want us to look at before I go to all the things that we have to understand about the credit card. So there is a psychological way, which it's a psychological view that I want us to look at to understand how the system has been built, because the system was not built to make you wealth. If you study the system carefully, you understand that the system is created to work against you. And when the system is work against you, the system is also created to cripple you so that you'll never be wealthy. So let's look at how these things are being built, psychological. So the Visa and the MasterCard didn't introduce the tap feature because they care about your time. Credit card companies use human psychology to manipulate. To manipulate you into spending money. These card companies push you into debt. Number one, removing emotional connection with money. So consumers spend almost double when using credit cards instead of cash. Why? It's because credit card transactions are designed to be painless and frictionless. And then you are supposed to think about the statement. So when now you can use me with credit card tab, then that thing, it was not created to save you time. You understand the issue of advancing, but it was not created to save you time. There is a difference between the connection of having a liquid cash and then when you swap that thing. And then it's easier for you to overspend money when it's in a credit card because it's not something that you just have it here. There's not that too much emotional connection. So, but when you have it here, it's different. It's way different. So now they say because the connection is not there, then it's easier for these guys to overspend or to pass their lane, which or the boundaries they have laid to say this will be the boundary which I won't cross. So they just buy. And there are some people also who say, as long as there is money, I have to spend it. So for such people, a credit card becomes the greatest hook because as long as there is a balance in it, they just spend it anyhow. So the second thing is that thing of minimum payments. But the issue of minimum payments not only applicable to credit cards, but applicable to a lot of contracts which you are given. The minimum payment is the lowest amount you need to pay on a debt in order to avoid late fees. So it left if left unpaid, the remaining debt grows exponentially, and then interest on the remaining balance could easily add up more than the initial purchase amount. So you look at it and say, if you take this credit card or if you take this contract, you'll be paying 300 a month. You'll be like, 300 is nothing. I'll be able to balance it 300. And this type of minimum payment, it is also the factor that has made many people to have a lot of debts, because you'll be saying, for Truworths, I can pay 200 a month. For TFG, I can pay 300 a month. For my credit card, I can pay 500 a month. This thing becomes a normal way of living because that's where they want you to go. So they want you to be trapped in that cycle to the point where you are no longer having a straight budget towards your living. The only way for you to live is to live through these channels that you know that if you want clothes, you'll be using your clothing cards, your Markham, whatever it might be. You'll be using them to make sure that you get your clothes. And if you want food or other necessities, you'll be using a credit card. And then when each and every month you'll be saving this. But the hardest thing about it is that you will wake up and then you are left with maybe a year to go to retirement. You discover that there is nothing of value that you have built, but you still have a lot of debts on the table. And then you are clogged in. I've learned this principle in psychology. They said it is impossible to resist a temptation that you always be held. So in other words, when you behold something for a very long time, it becomes so inevitable for you to avoid it. So you end up falling to that trap. So and then a repeated habit becomes a lifestyle. So now if you can use your card to say, okay, when most of these things, when they start, it's like, I just want to buy clothes with the card to grow my credit score. And then you do like that, and say, I'm disciplined. And then later on, it becomes a lifestyle where now you go, maybe you were passing. And then while passing there, you saw, they say 50% off sale. And then say, let me buy this thing with the card. Since I don't have a month end, I'll make sure that I pay it off. Then month end comes, you have other responsibilities that pops up without you being thinking of it. And then you fall into that trap. So these things, they are created psychological, and once we are hooked psychological, it becomes so difficult for us to exit that thing. I don't know, guys, if you remember back then how for like contracts phone were introduced. I don't know if you still remember, but the first benchmark of contracts when it comes to phone, you were given an option to pay the SIM card and to pay the phone. So the two were separated. They were not coming together as now. So you'll choose whether you want the phone without the SIM card, or you will want the phone with the SIM card, which is now the most expensive thing in a phone contract is not the phone, is the SIM card most of the time. You look at how much you're contributing every month on the phone is cheaper compared to the SIM card. And then they saw, okay, these guys, if we say they have an option to choose between the SIM card and the phone, most of them, they take a phone without the SIM card. We don't make more money, than they make it, and they hook it up to say, now you'll have to pay both. And then it started with 12 months contract. When it started, it was 12 months contract. And then they took it from 12 months to 24 months, and then from 24 months, now they took it to 3 years. So now they'll take it to 4 years, they'll take it to 5 years, they'll take it to 6 years. By the time you finish paying off that thing, you discover that it's already dead and you'll need a new one. And that's how they hook you up. And it's a runaround cycle that you'll never exit, because when you have paid up your iPhone 17, by the time you paid it up, now there'll be iPhone 19 or iPhone 20. And then you look at your iPhone 19, you feel like, your iPhone 17, you feel like this thing is useless, and you go to that thing. So there is this trap that they've introduced. It's like those of you who grow up in villages, the strategy that you use to use when you want to catch a chicken. You put just a bit of a seed there, and then you drop it up until it enters the door, and then that thing will be eating and forget that there is a trap, or not knowing there is a trap consciously. And then the next thing, it is inside the house, and you close the door, then you catch it up. So that's how they drop these things. They introduce them as things which are helpful. And I don't think, and I don't believe 100% with my heart that a person who's earning around 5K can be committed to debts. They just have, but the thing is that if you earn that 5,000 rand, you'll be like, I can get a phone with the contract, which I can pay around 400. I'll be left with 4.6. I can get a Jet card or a TFG card where I pay 300. Then I can still be left with 4 point something. Then I can survive. It's not survival. It's killing the potential to build something of value later. So in that kind of space, your thinking should be, how can I build the capacity to earn more? Because your capacity to earn determines what comes inside of your pocket. If you want to increase your income, you need to increase your earning income skills. So your earning capacity plays a major role on how much you're going to receive on your end. So if you have multiple skills, then those multiple skills are going to help you to build multiple streams of income. But if you have one skill, then you'll have to depend on that one skill to make a good income. So good income is not about just say, I'm going to get something which is going to pay me more. It's also about creating creating a capacity to earn more, which it has to deal with personal development. You have to deal with the skills which you need in order for you to earn more. So the issue of minimum payments, guys, this is the harshest trap that we have fallen into. And then you in your mind, we're like, for me to take 300 rand and pay on something, minusing from the 30K which I'm earning, is nothing. It's nothing when you count it from a distance. But sit down and collect all the statements that they're going to send to you, the credit cards, guys, and start to read everything. Then you discover that it is not working on your favor, but it's working against you. So in all these traps which I will share here, this one stood up for me to say the minimum payment is not only the one issue applicable to the credit cards, but it's applicable to a lot of things. So you'll be like, that money is nothing. You will discover that at the long range is something, because compounding, obvious, at the beginning of it, it does not make a bit of a sense. But in the long run, compounding start to make sense. So if it's negative, it's working against you. If it's positive, it works good for you. So we must be careful of these habits that we are developing. And then that minimum payment thing, I'm repeating again, this is one of the greatest trap which they used to say, but bro, you can take this credit card or you can take this credit. You'll be paying this minimum amount. And according to you, it's a minimum amount. But that thing will introduce you to other things where, as I've said, you'll be now for food, depending on the credit card, for clothing, all these things, you will be consuming them on credit. And then you discover that there is nothing stable that you say, I'm buying this directly from my own budget. Everything about it is all about credit. So we have now to maintain the issue of budget, and also we must maintain the issue of building good emergency funds, not depending on credit to say my credit is my backup. No, your credit is not your backup. So the third trap, which these things are wired to cause into, is the discount on purchases. Okay, so some retailers offers discounts if you get if you get a store credit card. So here's why an approval means you now have access to more money. So upgrading your purchase becomes a lot easier, because the more expensive version becomes, the more attainable. So and they will say, if you use this card, this shop card or this credit card, maybe it's from game, they say from game, if you use the game credit card, then you get some discounts. And when you'll be like, oh, it can't be a discount, because they know that the money, they're going to catch it later on the interest. So it's a discount on the face, but in the reality, it's not a discount. If you look at the system itself, you discover that they call discount here. Because in the reality, whatever is discounted, I'm going to pay it extra again on the interest. I'm going to pay extra on the interest. So we will buy into this version. We don't ask that, say, okay, if they say there is a discount, what is their catch? Because there is no such a thing that call a discount. When you study the issue of pricing, how they come up with pricing, it's so crazy. And we fall into that thing because most of the time they use the 3-category system in terms of bridging a price. And when they bridge a price, they know which price they're looking for, but they will put 3 different prices. And we fall into something that say, okay, this one is the right price for us because this one is expensive. It means it has quality, but they know we'll fall into that. So when they speak of discounts, your question is, what's the catch? Because most of the time they have catch in these credit cards to say, oh, if you use the credit cards, you get the points, you will get the discounts. It's okay, but they know how to catch you. The fourth thing is the rewards. So the more you spend, the more you earn, but the rewards are not worth it if you miss payments. So if you are not diligent and make one late payment, you will have paid more in interest than you earn as rewards from a lot of purchases. So understand that the rewards, definitely credit cards comes with rewards, but those rewards will never make sense if you skip one payment. That one payment can affect you a lot. So it's a win-win game, but they know that they are masters of this. You are not an expert in this. So they will know, okay, if we don't catch this one here, we're going to catch this one this side. So they are always looking for a way to catch you. Their aim is to catch you. And once they grab you, this thing is like gambling. Once gambling holds you tight, it's not easy for you to say, I'm going to break out from this thing. It's a cycle. So the last thing is the zero balance transfer. So credit card companies want to entice people or already in debt. So here's the catch: 0% transfer are not usually free. You may get a charge a 3% initiation fee, and missed payment can lead to standard interest rate, which is going to be 20 plus. So we say, okay, this there is no such. They are looking for a catch. So not necessarily that all their catches do work, but they will find you between. because the aim is to catch you. So they can't use one bait. They have to bring different baits just to catch you. So these things, as I've said, they are created to put us in a trap. So once we're in the trap, most of the time we look for ways to sustain ourselves living in debt. Then from there, you'll be living with overdraft. And you discover that one person is having 3 credit cards and those 3 credit cards are on overdraft. It's not easy. It won't be easy for this person to exit this cycle of debt. So the guys that are like guys who are doing businesses, especially constructions, those guys, you can discover that they use the overdrafts because when they use overdrafts, they know how to catch up later. You know, the construction guys, they can be running a tender of 40 million. They have an overdraft of 5 million. They know how to settle it. But just imagine a mere person who just depend on salary to say, I'm going to take the overdraft. And when I take the overdraft, I'm going to cover it with my own monthly budget. It's so difficult, guys. It's so difficult. The thing is that financial crisis also mess up with your mental health. That's the danger of it. It messes up with your mental health, and your mental health messes up with everything. Because once you are not right mentally, then the whole system collapses. Because that's how we draw our energy. So then, what are the do's and the don'ts? As I've explained to you that before you consume these credit cards, you need to understand how they operate. Let's check at the do's and the don'ts of credit cards. We'll start about the do's that you have to focus on. Then number one, you have to use 80% of your total available credit. So you don't have to use, if you have a credit card, to use above 30%. Why this thing matters? So the credit score model like FICO weigh credit utilization heavily. So it makes up to 30% of your overall credit score. So this thing is called on a credit score. Agree, there are 5 things which they are checking. So part of the 5 things which they are checking is credit utilization. So credit utilization forms 30% of your credit score. So if now you skip the 30% threshold, lenders, they'll start to think that when you rely on credit in order to cover daily expenses. And then what does that mean? Number one, it means you are a risk to lenders. So when lenders want to lend you money, they either lend you at high interest rate, because if you pass the 30% threshold, that record is going to be recorded on a credit score that you have used more than 30% of your credit. And then that thing is a red flag in your credit score. So it brings the credit score down. So it takes the credit score down. So when you use your credit card, you make sure that you stick to your 30%. What is the 30% of your total available credit limit? So you don't skip the threshold of 30%. Please bear this one in mind, because if you skip the threshold of 30%, the records goes, because after collecting everything before they bring you the statement, then they will submit to the credit bureau guys. And the credit bureau guys, then they're going to add the information in your credit score. So anything that is above 30% in terms of a credit card, it affects your credit score. As I've said, number one, it means that to the lenders, you are a risk. So if you're a risk, it means number two, when you borrow, your interest rate will be higher because your credit score will go down. So if you want to utilize a credit score, please make sure that you utilize, if you want to utilize your credit card, please make sure that you don't utilize more than 30%. It's like this thing, guys. Even if it's not a credit card, credit utilization counts, because they'll also calculate how much debts do you have. So if your debts are over the 30%, then it's going to reflect that you have too much debts, which affect now your credit score. So it matters, and not only to you individually. If you're a person who's doing business and you have business partners, please Make sure that you understand the credit history of your business partner, because the credit history of your business partner can affect the both of you if you want to commit maybe in using debt in your company. Because if we are doing business partnership, you come with a 30%, I come with my 30%, and they judge us based on a 30%. But if I'm overly weighed in debt, then that 30%, it becomes nothing to our partnership, because I'm already in debt. So you don't utilize more than 30% of your credit card, because the records, they will go to your credit score. So meaning if you utilize more than 30% of your credit card, it's going to affect your credit score. So which now the lenders will say this person depends on debt in order for him to sustain his monthly expenses. But under 10% is even better. So people with the highest credit score typically keep their utilization under 10%. So it means if you keep your credit score, if you spend 10% of your total available credit, then it gives advantage to your credit score. I mean, okay, I've also used an example of a credit limit of 1,000, and then I gave 3 scopes, and so I said over 30% is risky. So carrying a balance of 400 puts at 40% utilization. So this will actively drag down your credit score. So your credit score will go down instead of going up. Then under 30% is good. So keeping your balance at 250 puts you at the 25% utilization. And then under 10% is ideal. So keeping your balance at 80 Rand puts at 8% utilization, which actively boosts your score. I'm just using 1,000. That's why you see these numbers, 400, 258 Rand. So now, if I use 10% of my credit, I give myself advantage because I'm under 10%. So, but if I use above 30%, then when they look at my credit utilization, they'll be like, okay, this guys depend on credit in order for him to service his monthly needs, which is going to affect my credit score. But also it affects me if I decide to say I'm gonna borrow something from the bank. Maybe I want to buy a house, I want to build my business, whatever reason it might be, it will definitely affect my credit utilization, which builds 30% of my credit score. So the credit utilization is the major in a credit score because it has 30%. It has a 30%. Then the other 4 that are left, they will have to work out around the 70% of your credit score. But 30% of your credit score is the credit utilization. So this is critical, that you make sure that if you have a credit card, you use 30% of whatever will be your total available credit limit. So you have to understand these things, because at the end of the day, they might backfire. And then the second thing, you have to pay your full statement balance every single month. This is the golden rule. If you pay in full by the due date, you pay 0 interest. So meaning if you use the money that is them, and then you pay it before the due date, then you had access to the capital without paying any interest, which it works on your advantage, not the advantage of the bank. But if you pay the minimum amount, then the interest is on your shoulders. But if you pay the full amount, it works for you. The issue of a credit card, as I've said, it can work against you, it can work good for you. It's all about how you utilize it. So if you know you're going to take money from the credit card, if you're going to use the credit card, please make sure that you know that you have the money to cover it before the grace period ends. So if you do like that, then you have the advantage to do it, to get access to the capital and also to build a credit score without paying any interest. But don't normalize it as a way of living. I will show you the other way that one can use in order for him to be able to deal with this. So make sure that you don't pay the minimum, but you pay the full amount before the due date. So if you pay the full amount before the due date, then there will be no interest added into you. And this is the golden rule. So if you're going to pay the minimum, you will repeat the same thing for a very long time. And then the third thing is set up an auto pay, because sometimes we forget. So set up an auto pay at a minimum, or set up an auto pay for the minimum payment so you never miss the due date. Though paying the full balance automatically is ideal. So we are not promoting this thing of paying the minimum amount, but are promoting this issue of paying the whole amount so that you don't carry any interest in what you have borrowed. So the fourth thing is to check your statement regular. One of the things that when it comes to credit cards, the issue may be there are errors in your billing. So you need to make sure that you check those things that okay, everything is accurate. So please make sure that you check your statement. And then the fifth thing is you need to treat it like a debit card. So never spend money on credit card that you do not already have sitting in your bank account right now. So in other words, if I can use a credit card to build my credit score, which is one of the good advantages and it one of the good ways to build a credit score. So if I know my grocery is going to be 3,000, I know that, okay, I can use the 3,000 for my credit card. And then when I get paid and I put it back again, and then I repay it like that. So it builds my credit score like that. So I'm not using this money without having a backup plan. So I know when I use the money on the credit card, I do have the backup plan. So never use the money if you don't have the backup plan. Use the money while you know that you have a backup plan to settle it. And I know that sometimes we make those mistakes of just using the money without any backup plan. But now learn this principle that if you're going to utilize the money from the credit card, utilize it while you have a backup plan. So then what are the don'ts? Let's check out the don'ts. And okay. Number one, don't pay the minimum amount. So as I've said, paying only the minimum amount keeps you in debt for years, sometimes in decades, because almost all of your payment goes towards interest rather than the balance itself. So don't aim at, if they say you're going to be paying 300, don't aim at the 300 a month. Aim at the paying the full amount. Hence I say to you, if you are going to utilize the money on a credit card, utilize it with the backup plan. Have a backup plan to say, if I'm going to utilize this money, I'll be having the enough balance to cover the amount which I borrow from the credit card before the grace period closes. So the second thing is, don't take cash advance. So when you take cash advance using a credit card at an ATM, it incurs immediate high fees. That's everything that you have to know. It does not wait, does not have a grace period. So then the higher interest rates that start occurring from day one with no grace period. So if you are going to take cash advance, if you're going to be using the ATM, you have to know that it does not wait or it does not come with any grace period. Immediately it's kickstart to have interest. So don't take cash advance. Don't take cash advances, because immediately you take the cash advances and then you go to your ATM and withdraw the money. From that day, it start to build up interest, which is going to affect you. So sometimes, not sometimes, desperation can push you to hard corners. Hence, I say we need to be conscious of these decisions that we are making. And I've said from the beginning that there's a certain age in your life where you have to assess the risk. That if I take this thing, will it affect me while I'm still at work, or will it affect me when I go to retirement? So there are certain ages where I said, at this age, I am no longer going to take any a big debt. And I need to have a plan on how I'm going to deal with this thing if I choose to do so. So the third thing is, don't apply for multiple cards at once. This one also form part of your credit score. Don't apply too much debts also affect your credit score. So don't apply for multiple cards at once. Every application triggers a hard pull on your credit card report, which temporarily lowers your credit score. So don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. In fact, you also need to have a purpose and say, if you are going to take a credit card, what is the purpose of the credit card? Why do you take the credit card? You must have that why. You must answer that why. Don't just take it because it's fashionable, or maybe the bank says you do qualify for a certain credit card. You must have your big why. Why are you taking the credit card? Then the last don't is that don't max out your credit limit. This one is very dangerous. So spending close to your limit signals high financial stress to credit bureaus and drops your credit score. So if you maximize it, it's going to be a red light in terms of your credit score, and also going to be one of the difficult things that you have to deal with. Like even if you utilize all your credit and say I'm going to cover it, but it's going to reflect there in the credit bureaus to say, hey, this person have utilized all the money that was on the credit card. It shows that this person lives and depends on debt. So these things does affect, especially for people who still want to get things. Maybe you're still at the process of buying your house, you're still in the process of buying a car, or whatever it might be that require debt. You have to consider these factors, because if you don't consider them, they will definitely affect you and affect your credit score. So now let's check what are the advantages and the disadvantages of a credit card. So number one, credit card builds an advantage. Okay, credit card building. So responsible use builds a strong credit history, making it easier to buy a house or rent an apartment without interest. So if you're able in your credit card and being disciplined and using it wisely, it helps you to build good credit reputation. So when it helps you to build good credit reputation, then your credit score, it will grow, and then you'll also have